Our first guest, who is Shannon resident Niamh O'Callaghan, who took to social media recently to share the horrifying experience her 83-year-old mother endured on a recent visit to University Hospital Limerick. Following a lengthy wait for admission, she was admitted to a trolley in a crowded corridor within touching distance of other patients and located beside a sluice room. Niamh likened the hospital to a war zone and chose to leave before her mother's episode of care was complete due to the conditions. And Niamh joins me now. Niamh, thanks so much for being with us on the show.
Hi, Alan. How are you?
Very well. You and your mum less so. I've kind of touched on a little elements of the story, Niamh, but would you mind taking us through what happened?
So last Thursday, 8 days ago, she put a log into the fire and she hurt her back, quite simply. It was coming into the long weekend. My mother is not a fan of hospitals, no more than anybody else. And she suffered for the entire weekend. An ambulance did come out to her on Sunday, checked her out, checked her vitals, and checked with the level of pain. And with what her own doctor had given her, they could only give her paracetamol. So they suggested she go to hospital. And hospital meant UL or UHL, which she refused. She's been there before, and she has said that she would rather die than go back in there.
Which is,
come Tuesday morning, and there's a reason for that, and every single one of your listeners, if they haven't experienced it, they know somebody who has. This isn't new. This is not new in any way, shape or form. This has been going on for decades, and I'm furious, Alan, with the state that the government and the apathy of this nation has allowed the hospital and other hospitals in the country to get into. I am absolutely, I was about to curse there, furious.
Well, I'm glad you stopped yourself, Niamh, but I suppose some people would say if it had happened, it would be understandable. But you said your mum didn't want to go to UHL. So
she did not want to go, right? She chose to stay at home and suffer, right? I asked her to gauge her pain score, and it was 20 out of 10. Now, as somebody who suffers with pain for the last almost 11 years, I understand what she's saying. I understand the energy that pain takes out of you, right? So anyway, on Tuesday, we got her doctor down here. He had a look at her. She had then developed, because pain takes so much out of you, she had started to develop a chest infection. That wasn't the main issue with her. But anyway, he wanted to get her in somewhere. We couldn't get her into the Galway clinic because they don't take orthopedic patients. Then MAU in Ennis accepted her in. So we went there on Wednesday. She was treated very well, I have to say, but I'm absolutely furious with Ennis Hospital now as well, having learned more. They did x-rays and scans, and the consultant and doctor came and said she needed further assistance from a specialist. Now, in hindsight, looking at the time, it was 4 o'clock. What specialist was going to see her when she got to UHL? But anyway, they arranged for an ambulance to take her from Ennis to UHL.
And
Niamh, what should have happened?
Sorry to interrupt, can I ask her, how did your mum feel when she heard she was ultimately going to have to go to UHL, given her what she had expressed, her reticence to go beforehand?
She was so angry with me. So angry.
Did you explain there was nothing you could do, that was the only option available?
That was, well, I thought that was the only option available. I've now learned that Ennis, having looked at her x-rays, should have kept her in and given her fluids and given her antibiotics by IV. So I didn't know this at the time. I found this out yesterday. So then she was taken by ambulance. I can't say enough about the ambulance service. Unbelievable. But also, they wasted an hour and a half of their precious time holding on to my mother in a holding pattern in A&E in Limerick. What the hell? 3 trained paramedics hovering around my mother. She wasn't the only trolley that was waiting, or A&E ambulance personnel waiting to be brought in and transferred over to A&E. It took an hour and a half. for the transfer from the paramedics, who are, as we all know, hard-pressed to get to everybody, to a nurse. It was then that I heard that she had a compression or a suspected compression fracture of her spine, and she hadn't been offered in Ennis nor in Limerick from that morning until that night. Not one person offered her a paracetamol. Not even a paracetamol. Her GP had given her morphine, liquid morphine, and I had brought it with me. I am well used to hospitals. I'm well used to the lack of service, to the lack of attention, and I brought her medication with me. And I made sure that she got her pain medication as and when it was directed by her GP. I did in Ennis ask a doctor in the MAU to check that I could give her medication, and I was given the go-ahead. So I did that. So I didn't do it without their knowledge. I told them what I was doing.
Okay.
And then ambulance to Limerick, hour and a half waiting around. Ambulance personnel could have been gone out, and then she gets handed over to nothing. To absolutely nothing. The triage nurse asked her about her cough. My mother wanted to shoot her at this point. She'd been through it. Like, my mother is 83. She has underlying illnesses like most 83-year-olds, or like some 83-year-olds. This was making her system, this was attacking her system, this energy that she was expending on being out of home, out of comfort, in hospitals, in an ambulance, on a trolley, in a war zone. And Al and I have been in A&E many times, and this was the worst I have ever seen it.
And Niamh, when you say war zone, it is a strong word. So when you say it's the worst you've ever seen it, what did you and your mother see?
So I want to know when we stop treating the elderly with respect. She was brought down A&E, so the chairs outside were full, thronged. There was security staff wearing masks, there was staff wearing masks, there was people wearing masks. There's a flu outbreak. Then into A&E, into the zones A, B and C, there was people all over the chairs there before you even go through the double doors to any of the zones. There was people on trolleys. There was trolleys everywhere. Everywhere. Then you go into the zones, there was trolleys everywhere. Now, as I said, I am very familiar with this place. And I walked around and I saw that there was a minimum, in Zone C, there was a minimum of 3 to 4, what are they called? Observation units. So single occupancy rooms. They were empty. There was 2 abreast and a tiny little area to walk through in the corridors, but yet there's 3 or 4 rooms empty. There was elderly people lying on trolleys and not being seen. My mother was placed between, I think it's a sluice room and a storage container or a storage unit that was very frequently used, and across from her was a bathroom. The stink, the stench, it was disgusting.
The situation you described, Niamh, is no one would want to go through it, much less someone in their 80s with underlying conditions. And I'm sure you tried to speak to staff about this. What kind of response did you receive?
One doctor looked at me. She just looked at me. And she kind of nodded, and I said, I want you to find somewhere for my mother to actually get a rest and get some care. Can you go and see my mother? She walked straight past my mother. I pointed out where my mother was. You couldn't miss her because it was right beside the exit of Zone C. Right beside it. She was holding hands almost with the man across from her who went in with a flipping suspected heart attack, to be told that he had either cystitis or a hernia. I hope he's doing okay, by the way. He was there for 24 hours at least. The man in front of her was there. His daughter, I think, was a daughter, He was in a nappy with his legs akimbo. I said, do you, maybe you didn't see it, but his blanket is taken off. She said, if I put it back on, he'll take it off. I've been here for 26 hours. Do you think I'm not looking after him? And I said, look, I understand where you're coming from. I just wanted to point it out. I didn't know if you were with him or the other person.
Yeah.
So this is like every single person in that Zone C was elderly.
Niamh, how long did you and your mother endure this situation before you made a call and decided to leave?
My brother took over at 7:30. I had been with my mother since 2 days before. He took over at 7:30. I left at about 8. He rang me at 9:30 and said she wants to go. And I said, I don't blame her, but we're going to have to make her stay. At this point, at 9:30, they hadn't seen anyone. There was a handover. We were promised a handover at 8 o'clock or 8:30. No one had come to see her. Nobody had come to check on her. No one had offered her even a cup of tea. Obviously, we looked after her in that respect, but there's normally people coming around with tea or something for the patients. And so at 10:30, I was heading back into UHL, and I rang my brother, and he said, "No, she's on the way home. We're just leaving now." My mother couldn't walk because of this pain in her back. She was unable to walk, but she was able to get the energy to tell my brother to get her out of there.
So this call was made by your mother, and
Yes.
undoubtedly you and your brother wholeheartedly went along with this. I just wonder, Niamh...
No, not wholeheartedly. Are you kidding me? We tried and we tried and we tried to persuade her to stay, because we're also flipping idiots, right? We were accepting the status quo. My mother is a force of nature, and that's how my daughter survived the flipping health system, and I survived the health system, is because of who we were brought up by. She's a force of nature.
Niamh, were the staff made aware that your mum was leaving, and if so, how did they respond?
Well, sure, she had a cannula. She had a cannula in her arm. She needed that to be removed. So finally a doctor came and said, right, had a look at whatever, and said, you need to stay. And at that point she was like, I'm leaving. And he said, I need you to stay. You need to be admitted. She was like, I should have been admitted 5 hours ago. We were under the assumption, we were under the illusion that a doctor had accepted her and that she was going to be brought to admissions, to a bed, to a ward, to somewhere that would look after her. If we had known that she was going to be brought into A&E, we would have refused point blank to go anywhere.
Niamh, how is your mother now, and what are your hopes in speaking out about what happened? Because I'm sure you don't see your mum's experience as an isolated incident.
It's not. Like I said, I have witnessed this. My daughter has been through this. I've been through this. This isn't something new. This is not new, and I am my hope is that she is going to be looked after. She was to be brought to a hospital today. We're waiting on somebody with more medical knowledge than us, and she's going to murder me if she ever knows that I'd said this. My mum hasn't woken up since 6 o'clock last night. So I don't know what is going to bring today.
So she hasn't woken up since 6 last night.
No,
and
she has developed a chest infection. And that is, and I'm under no illusion and be under no illusion, and I am letting everybody know here, if anything happens to my mother, I will be bringing a case against the government of Ireland. It sounds ridiculous, but that is the only information that they understand. right? And as for that flipping Minister of Health, I discovered yesterday, because I was contacted by so many people yesterday, Alan, who had the same stories, whose partners or mothers or fathers or husbands died in there, or who was made paralysed because of the misdiagnosis, because of the lack of attention. And sorry, you asked me a question about what responses I was given. When I asked for attention, I told you about one doctor. The other doctor said, "What do you want me to do? I'm just an ED doctor. Find a nurse."
That can't have done much for your. That can't have done much for your mood at the time.
No, but I was trying to be very calm and very respectful. I'm thinking it's not their fault, but frankly, most of them, God love them, and I'm sure there are so many fantastic people out there, but a lot of them are apathetic. They don't care. They don't have it within them.
Do you believe that's a consequence of just being worn down and being overrun?
Yes. And of bad management. But I found out yesterday that Minister for Health and Jennifer McNeil, I'm coming for you. And I mean that. And I'm sure and I know that there'll be others with me coming for her. She refused point blank to go down to the deepest point of West Clare and take an ambulance ride to A&E in Limerick. Right? She refused. Who the hell is she to refuse?
Well, Niamh, to be fair, the Minister isn't here to defend herself, but on this particular issue, but I can understand your anger about it.
I can tell you the answer to that. Angela Call told me yesterday she was invited on many occasions to go to the deepest part of West Clare and get into an ambulance and see what it was like.
Well, we will reach out to the Minister and her department to get their version of that, or their side of the story. And that, Niamh, your mum, as you say, your mum hasn't woken up since 6. I'm sure you're at your wit's end and really worried. Myself. And we appreciate you coming on at this very difficult moment to share yours and her story. Please do keep in touch with us on it, and we will let you get back to her, because I know you probably will be moving at any moment. Niamh, thanks at such a difficult time for sharing your story.
There's many more people out there with the same stories, Alan.
And I'm sure they will get in touch with us here on the show. No, that's understandable. That is understandable. Niamh, I'll mention the numbers for people if they want to get in touch to share their experiences or their loved ones' experiences. 0818 400 964, or send a message to 086 1800 964. But Niamh O'Callaghan, a very angry resident in Shannon, although given the story she just told, you can understand why. With us on Morning Focus, we have reached out to the HSE on this, and the statement they provided us with says HSE Midwest cannot comment on individual cases when to do so might reveal information in relation to identifiable individuals breaching the ethical requirement on us to observe our duty of confidentiality. The matters raised here have been brought to the attention of the relevant management team, and it would be inappropriate to comment further.